Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today I will show you AudioThing wires, which is an emulation of a Soviet wire recorder. This is of course another Hainbach plugin. If you've been following my channel, then you've probably noticed the theme by now. I do like Hainbach's plugins quite a lot, and I find them very inspiring. And this is no different from the other plugins of his that I have. They're all really cool, and this one is probably the one that I've used the most so far. So this plugin is an emulation of a wire recorder.
I'm talking to you through a piece of Cold War history. The Soviet-made MM61 wire recorder.
These were common before there was tape, so it's even older than tape. And if you look at very experimental music from the 30s or 40s, you might find things recorded on wire. So it very much flows in the usual Hainbach spirit of using very old things, and yeah, it's super interesting. For me, it was practically an instant buy when it came out because it's just such a cool plugin that it was exactly the kind of thing that I was looking for in the sense of tape distortion type effects, and it's very nice. The reason why I like this so much is because a lot of the time when I use digital instruments, I find them a bit harsh sounding, and this plugin is just perfect to mellow it out a bit and give it a bit, analog sounding grit and a bit of distortion and warmth, the elusive warmth, whatever that is. Before I got this plugin, oftentimes I would try to re-record something on a tape recorder and then realize that my recorder is a little bit too broken and adds just a little bit too much hiss, and yeah, sometimes it's just a bit too much. And the cool thing about this plugin is that you can dial it in just the way you want it. You can add in as much hiss as you want or take it out completely. You can add motor noise or take it out, and you can do that with all sorts of stuff. There's input gain staging, so you can add distortion. There are mic and speaker elements that are also giving a nice character. And there's also a nice echo. You can add drops, you can add clicks and a bit of warble, that sort of thing. And the best thing about it is that you can leave it very low or really dial it up just the way you want it. And I don't have to keep 5 different tape recorders around that are all in various states of broken just so that I can find the right effect I want. So that's really cool. I still re-record on tape quite often, but I will use this if I just want a subtle effect. Controls are fairly straightforward. On the right there is the input and output gain staging that can add some nice distortion and soft clipping. There's also a start and a stop of the wire. On the left you have the microphone and the speaker cabinet, and also the hiss and the motor, and an envelope that takes the hiss and the motor sounds down if you're not playing anything, which I find really helpful, even though I usually forget to put it on. In the middle you find wow and flutter, drops and clicks. Then there's also this nice echo section at the bottom, which is pretty self-explanatory. I find it very easy to use and very simple to dial in exactly the kind of effect you want, and that's one of the reasons why I like this plugin so much. Putting it on there and putting exactly the right effect on there is just so convenient. I think it's very well designed that way. So let's make some music with it. Recently I replaced my old laptop from 2015 because it was very much on its way out, and I knew that it wouldn't last for long anymore, and my predictions were kind of prophetic because it died just I anticipated that and got myself a new laptop. So when I was migrating my files from my old laptop to my new one, I found some project files that were unfinished, some old projects that I had flying about when I just recorded an idea here and there. And one of them I found actually quite interesting, so I decided to finish it. I actually recorded this when I was playing around with a Teensy and the capacitive touch plates on my modular. It's actually my AE modular that has the capacitive touch. I played around with the Teensy a bit and made a sort of MIDI controller from the capacitive touch. And with that, I played in some chords basically, because the pads overlap and it's quite nice. I was a bit surprised about the instruments that I used in there because it was apparently just some Ableton presets. I was really just testing the Teensy, so I didn't really think about the instruments much. But I quite liked them, so I just left them in there and supplemented them with other stuff. So the next element I added was some pure magnetic verve, which is a tape loop simulation type thing of a string synthesizer. I actually have a video on that. You can watch it up here. I really like this. It's one of my staples and I use it in many tracks. I thought it would tie in the more unusual instruments for me with my usual stuff. As you can see from the MIDI files, I reused the MIDI that I recorded, and to make it a bit different and give it a bit of variation, I put this through Clouds and VCV Rack and modulated that with Ocht, and it gave this really nice pattern that I really enjoyed. I also put some bells in there. I usually use Operator for that, and I like the presets and I change them usually just a little bit. Operator is an FM synth engine, which makes it quite digital sounding, so this is a perfect candidate for wires. I put some wires on there. I didn't push it too much, just a little bit to crunch it up a bit and take out some of the harshness. I think it makes it sound super nice and interesting. I love the effect it gives, especially with plucky bell sounds and that sort of thing. It's really quite something. I also had this very atmospheric type preset that is sort of wandering about a bit. I enhanced that a bit by putting that through fathoms and then some rings and clouds, and yeah, I put a lot of those kind of complex effects on it to make it even more of an wandering, meandering type atmospheric thing. I really like that. Very lovely. And Fathoms is another one that I really like. Another pure magnetic plugin that is really quite interesting. If you don't know it already, you can check it out here. And then I also had some samples that I wanted to use on there. I used one element from Landfill Totems. That's another Hainbach plugin, and he has all these really cool samples from his test equipment in there. And I wanted to use one of the sounds as a percussive element because I rarely ever do that. And I used a motor sound as sort of a little percussion. To liven it up a bit, I modulated some of the parameters, and I used Ableton's LFO for this, which is now included in the intro version, which is really cool. And I'm on an LFO kick at the moment, so I put LFOs on everything. In this case, I modulate some of the parameters of the sample library, the distortion, and I think the expression. And I also modulate the mix amount of wires, and I use a random walk type sample and hold LFO for this. Basically, I use wires in the same way I would use a filter, and it gives it a lot more movement. I also use some other samples that I recorded from my brother's noise box. That's a wooden box with springs attached to it. It's super nice and interesting, and I recorded a lot of samples from it when I was in Germany. So I used those samples, and since I was playing the same sample over and over, I used the same trick also for these samples to liven it up. Those are much more mellow and in the background. They don't grab your attention so much, but there's also all this movement in there, and it comes in the background, and I quite like it. So here I use wires to add some analog grid, and also as a sort of effect to add movement and interest to a sound. It's a really nice full plugin that can give you a lot of different things, grit and distortion and yeah, it can do a lot of interesting things. I really like it for the effects it can give. Now that I have this in my arsenal, I have this tendency that if I don't like a sound, one of the first things I try is to put wires on it and see whether that improves it. Because often when I don't like a sound, it's just because it's a little bit too digital and harsh for me. And this just helps immensely with all sorts of sounds. And if you dial it back and bring it or make it really harsh, there's always something that adds to it. And that's why I use it so often. It's a really cool plugin. So if you haven't checked it out, there's a link in the description. I use it all the time and it's one of my staples now. Hainbach makes such cool plugins. All the plugins that I have of his are really interesting and nice. The Landfill Totems library is also super interesting. There's also a video on that. So if you're interested in seeing how I use that one a bit more, you can check that out too. I think I have to play around a bit more with my teensy capacitive touch thing because I found the harmonies quite striking and interesting. Made for an interesting track. And for some reason I completely forgot about this project. It was because I was building all this DIY stuff and then I'm in build mode and not in make music mode. And now I'm in making music mode, so this is what sometimes happens with all this DIY. And now I finally got to finish it. If you enjoyed the music in this video, then you can head over to polarcoaster.bandcamp.com and check out my new album Dreams Long Forgotten, which you can pre-order there or might even be out already by the time you watch this video. The first track I played you is actually one of the singles from the new album, and you get that one to download already if you pre-order. The album is available as tape as well this time, which is really cool. And the first limited edition handmade run is already sold out, which kind of blows my mind. But there are still tapes left of the regular release edition, and they are likely to run out quickly too. So if you're interested, check it out sooner rather than later. Thank you for all your support on the new album already. It means so much to me. If you enjoyed the video, then don't forget to leave a like. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really helps out my channel, so I would appreciate it. In the future you can expect more videos like this one. I already have some more plugin videos planned and you can stick around for those. There will also be videos about the album that I'm writing right now with my modular. So if you're interested in that sort of thing too, then I would be happy to have you here. In any case, I hope I see you soon for another video. Bye!